evening, everyone. Colin is here, but he has no verbal announcements. You can check the class announcements channel for anything that he's going to have for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. We have SQL Part 2 tonight. And there we go. Okay. My only announcements is just to remind you that I am still accepting your art for our project for the lecture examples that will be continuing starting in the next class. So if you can have them to me by tomorrow, that would be super awesome because I'm in the middle of packing and moving, and I need to have a little time to prep the data to get it all ready for the example, the lecture example. So graded assignment number 4, I will be doing an intro video. I'm going to squeeze it in between packing boxes or something. I will get that out to you guys soon. That's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and get into lecture. So this is part 2. We're going to learn a little bit more about setting up tables and writing queries. We'll talk about the relationships between tables because we do call them relational databases. And how to import records from a CSV file, and how to write more complex queries that you've than the ones you've been writing so far. What is a script? What does it entail? When is it useful? And I'm going to go outside, beyond, I should say, the curriculum, and I'm going to teach you how to write variables because they're actually really useful with scripts, and I think you'll find them helpful for your studio assignment tonight. And I will demonstrate some of that for you. And then grouping and counting. Very, very useful skill. So let's talk about table relationships. The power of relational databases is in how they're linked together so that you can relate data from one to another. These are the types of relationships. We'll be learning more about how to do this on the Java side in the next 3 classes. One-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-one, and then many-to-many. So this you can see is a one-to-one relationship between the artwork table and a table that we're going to create called artwork details that will allow us to have more information. And there's actually going to be quite a lot more as we get into the project back when we're working on the Java side. And separate that out so that the artwork object itself just has like all of the things that relate to it, other than its ID and its title and the on display Boolean that we're using right now for this example. So that's a one-to-one relationship. There's exactly one detail for one artwork and vice versa. They go together. On the other hand, you can have one-to-many relationships. So artist and style and exhibit all are one-to-many, many-to-one relationships. And you can kind of see that, for every artist, they could have multiple artworks. Every style can have multiple artworks. And an exhibit will have multiple artworks, right? When we do get into our project back on the Java side, we are going to eventually, when you learn how to do a many-to-many relationship, which will be 3 or 4 lectures from now, we're going to actually make style into styles, and we are going to actually demonstrate how to do a many-to-many relationship, but I'm not going to do that tonight because you could have an artwork that gets classified in more than one style. So that's kind of, this is how we're going to do it for tonight, is just focus on the one-to-one and the one-to-many. All right. So when you are setting up these table relationships, you have to assign a primary key to the ID. And this is important in order to be able to link it to another table. And then you will also want to add auto increment. This is something that we'll just basically say, go ahead and just keep creating a new ID number for me. And then you don't have to actually like add that to the data that you're giving it when you're creating new records, because it'll do it for you. All right, so foreign keys, on the other hand, you learned a little bit about this on the fly in Studio last time, right? If the table is the many in a one-to-many relationship, then you need to set foreign keys so that you can establish what the link is between the tables. And in this case, of course, our mini is artwork, right? You can have mini artworks for some of these other things, styles and artists and exhibits. So we're going to correspond the primary key of the one table and make it a foreign key in the many table. So you just make sure you mention which column is to be set in the current table that you're setting up. So in this example, you can see each foreign key that's being set here is being set to artist ID, which is, one of the columns in this table. And then you use the references keyword. And that is where you actually say, here's the table I want to go relate to. And here's the field within that table that is its primary key, that the two of these will correlate. They'll be the same. And that's how we know how to link the data together. Okay, so that's just the syntax. And of course, I will demonstrate that for you now, actually. Before we move on to anything else, let's go ahead and set up our tables. Okay, so I have already written the queries for these. Let's just talk about them. We're going to create them. Actually, yeah, we can create them all first. Can we? Is that true? Nope. Yes, we can. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sitting here arguing with myself, but I've been working on like 5 lectures at once. Some of them are from Unit 1 and some are from Unit 2, and my head's all over the place. Okay. So we're going to create the style table first, and what sequence you set up the tables in, like you create them in, matters. For example, you might think, well, artwork is kind of the main thing, right? Well, we can't create artwork yet because we need these tables to exist if we're going to set those foreign keys and relate them to these IDs, right? So we're going to create style and artist and exhibit first. And then we'll come down and do artwork. And then once that exists, we'll do artwork details because we're not actually setting a foreign key for a one-to-one relationship. So we'll start with style. It's very simple. We have an ID that is an integer. We're setting it as the primary key, and we're setting this to auto increment so that when we are adding items to this, all we really need to do is add the title, and the ID will be created for us. So I can, highlight this or stick my cursor in here since we're just running the one. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to use this particular lightning bolt with the cursor over it and run it. And you know what? I just created this in the wrong thing because I haven't set up my schema yet. Okay, so you're going to get to see me demonstrate how to drop a table. Okay. Yes, so I'm gonna right click on this. Golly. All right, there we go. I'm sorry. I'm using a television and it's wireless and it's a little laggy. Okay. So I'm going to drop it now. I don't need to review the SQL. Thank you. Okay. So sorry, I got ahead of myself. I actually do need to create a schema for this because I wanted to demonstrate that for you one more time because you guys are going to be doing a little bit more of this. So again, you set the schema name. I'm going to call it class 15 examples and then hit apply. It shows you the little query that it wrote here to create it. And you say apply, and then you can close. And now over here on the left, we can see that we have our class 15 examples. And as another reminder, you need to double click on this. You can see the art gallery is in bold, right? We want to make this one bold. This is going to be the one that we're actually adding running our queries against, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so let's get back over here to create tables. All right, so I'm going to run this again, and this time I've got the right one in bold, so we should be good. Okay, and then I'll hit refresh up here, and now we see here in the tables, we've got the style table. And you can click on this little icon here to open up the table. You can see that there's an ID column and a title column. There's just no data yet. That's okay, we're going to get there. Okay, so let's do the next one. This is the artist table. And this one has an ID, of course, as the primary key, but this one has first name, last name, and country. So I'm going to run this one. And again, refresh. Here's the artist table. I'll open that up. All right. And then the exhibit table is kind of similar to the first one, where we're going to just have ID and title. And refresh, there we go. All right, we'll open that one up so we can check the data once we import it. And then artwork. So this one, as just like you saw in the diagram on the slide, we've got an ID, that's the primary key. We've got a title, and then we have a details ID, artist ID, style ID, and exhibit ID. All four of those are the primary keys from those other tables. And then we have our Boolean on display. But we do need to add some foreign keys. So we're going to need to code that. And apologies, again, working with less screens than usual. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's just the 3, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and set this up. Again, the syntax, there we go. Foreign key is what you want to use there, and then you reference the column in this table that you're about to create. So we're going to say artist ID, and then references is the next keyword. And then here we first name the table that we're relating to, and then in parentheses, say what the primary key is of that table. So I can, I need a comma here. That's why it's in red. Okay, which means I need to do it here too. Okay. Oh my goodness. That's fine. I'm just gonna type it. Okay, foreign key. Now we're gonna do style. That's another one we need to do. References, style, ID column. Okay, and then one more. For the exhibit table. Okay, so all 3 of those should now make it possible for us to relate those tables, and those tables do exist, so it can find them and reference them because we created them first. All right, let's run this one. And then come over here and refresh. And now we see our artwork table, and we can open that up. Okay. So the last one to create is the artwork details. For now, the only 2 details we're going to track is the year created and the media. And once we start getting into the spring project, we're going to have a lot more information. But for now, we'll just stick with this. Okay, so I'm going to run this one. And it'll give us our ID, our year created, and the media. And we will just make sure that we're storing that ID in the artwork table. But we don't need a foreign key when it's a one-to-one relationship. Okay, and then I can refresh here. Did I refresh already? Yes, I did. Okay, open this. All right. Okay, so now we have all these tables. Let's talk about what we're going to do. If you have existing data, you've already established it in another file. In this case, we're going to use CSVs. You can actually just import it all at once. So here's how you do it. CSV is a very common file format for this, to export and import database records. Comma separated values is what CSV stands for. And MySQL Workbench has an import feature that we'll use, and we can create the table, define its columns and keys. We've done that part already, and now we're ready to import. And it's called the Table Data Import Wizard, and you just right-click on the table name to get there, and then you get a series of things in the wizard. It's going to take us through a bunch of screens to make sure we've got everything. And we just want to make sure the source and destination columns are matched. You can kind of see here, they say, okay, here's what I'm seeing in the file, the CSV file, and these are the columns that exist in your table. And then just make sure they match. And they might not necessarily be exactly the same, but as long as you know that they hold the data, you're good. So we're going to see examples of all of that. So let's go do it. All right, so let's start with style. All right, I'm going to come here and click on the Table Data Import Wizard. and it's asking me where I want to get my data from. And that is not correct. That's for a different class. So let's go to the one that is correct. All right, lecture examples. I just moved all these files today too. Okay. They're in May 2023. Pretty sure. Is that correct? Oh, we're in unit 2, guys. Again, I'm working on things for 2 different classes, so I'm sorry. Wow. All right, here we go. Okay, Java lecture examples. That is the repo, and then this is the folder, and this is the data. So this is in the repo for this, which is linked in the slides later if you guys want to take a look. All right, so we're going to go to, and I'm going to choose styles. That's the one I want to import from. All right, and it asks you if you want to use an existing table or if you're trying to create a new table. In my case, I already set up the tables exactly the way I want them, so I'm using the existing table. And it, is the same one that I right-clicked on, so it already has it queued up for us. And now we see all of these, and here's something where, there's something weird in the file, and it's got these columns that don't actually mean anything. All I really want is the ID and the style, which in the CSV file, you'll see the column is called style. In my table, it's called title, but that is what I want. I want it to actually be title. So, because I don't want to do style.style when I'm referring to it. I'm going to just say style.title. So this is correct. Everything's lined up. It's giving you a little preview of everything. And so I'm just going to say next. So that's an example of what it can be a little bit messy sometimes, but otherwise it's going to, other times it's going to be really clean. So you just kind of go through the motions here. And then when you get to the end, if everything's good, it'll say 12 records imported. If you end up with errors, which can absolutely happen, but it won't with the stuff that launch codes provide you for Studio tonight. That stuff's good. But if it ever happens when you're trying to set up, it's probably something like there's a character that's not allowed. That happens a lot when you have like quotes or apostrophes that are like the kind that are slanted and not, the ones that are straight up and down. Just dumb stuff like that will trip it up. And so every once in a while you have to go fix the data and then come back. But this is what it looks like when it works just fine. So we're going to finish this. And now if I'm on the style table, I just come here and I hit refresh. And there it is, all of the data that we imported. And we did not have to write queries and redo this to get these in here. All right, so let's do the same thing with the other tables. I'm going to go to the artist table, right click, table data import wizard, and it'll bring up the last thing that you imported. So I can actually say browse, and then all I have to do is just choose the other, one of the other files instead. So in this case, I want artists. So I'm going to say next, and yep, that's what I want. We can see that everything is exactly the same. The preview looks good. So keep going, and then 14 records imported. Okay, and we can come here and verify it by refreshing here, and there it is. Okay, let's do the exhibits. Oh, no. My bad. We're not going to have exhibit data. We're going to create it. That's actually when we're going to create it after the fact. So let's do artwork. Same process, going to browse and get the artworks CSV file. And then hit next. And next. Everything looks good. Kind of scroll down and see, oh, there is no more. Okay, that's it. And then they're probably, yeah, we're good. 20 records imported. Okay. Last one is details. Got that queued up as well. So this example, I mean, this is basically like what would happen if, people have been using your website for a while, you have some existing data that was put in, as people were like entering things in the form or whatever, and now you've got a whole bunch of it and you just want to, put it in all at once. Okay, oh, details, there we go. All right. Your created media, yep, looks good. All right. Next, 20 records imported. And I would expect that to be 20, and they're going to have the same IDs as the artworks. Okay, so we can go to artworks and refresh that. Yeah, and you see everything is here except exhibit ID and on display are null. And we're going to write some queries in a little bit to change that for some of these. Artwork details, we can see has its 20 records that have the correct information that kind of, continues more data about each of these artworks. And that's that one-to-one relationship. Okay, so that's how you import data. Anybody have any questions about what I've done so far? Totally okay if you don't. All right. Well, let's see. We are already at the break. So let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break, even though I know it's only been like 23 minutes. And it's okay. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about writing complex queries and scripts and all those fun things. Okay, welcome back. Let's talk about complex queries. So let's say that you need some results, but it depends on you doing another search to get another result first. You can use multiple queries together. And it's called a subquery when you nest one query inside of another. And you want to make sure you put that in parentheses because it's order of operations, right? It needs to know that it needs to execute everything inside the parentheses first to get that value. And then when it runs the greater query, it can actually just use the value because it's already there. All right. So let's go do an example of that first though, before we move on. Okay, so we're going to come over to this file where we're going to actually put together a number of queries. And the first thing we're going to do is write a query to display the first and last names of the artists who have artwork in the Impressionist style. So you think about the artists and their first and last names. We saw those as columns that are actually part of the artist table, right? And styles, to actually see what the name of a style is, that's in the style table. The thing that relates the two of those together is artwork, because artwork contains both an artist ID and a style ID. So this is where we're going to use these relationships to our advantage so that we can access information. But it's not enough to do a simple join. One of the ways that you can do this is to, write a query within a query. It also says that we should try to, return it without any duplicates. And so does anybody remember what the keyword is for that?
Union?
Distinct.
Distinct. Yeah. Yep, that's it. We want to just say select distinct so that if it has columns that where things would appear to be duplicates, it'll actually just return one instead of two. All right, so first name and last name is what we want to show. And obviously we're going to have artists that have multiple artworks. So this is where distinct is going to make sure we only see the artist name once, even if they have multiple artworks. So we'll start there and say from the artist table. We're just going to start with the artist table because that's where the first name and last name reside. And then we're going to do an inner join. And we're going to go to artwork. That's the thing that relates, the next step over, right, is to artwork, because we know we have a relationship where the artist ID is the same as artwork.artist. Yes, artwork.artist_ID. Okay, those are the two that are the same. And then we say, we want this to be for just the Impressionist style, right? So we'll say where artwork.style ID is. Now, we could go over to the artworks, to the style table, and we could read through all of them and try to find the one that says Impressionism and find that ID and hard code it. But that's not very useful, especially if it was a really big database with a lot of records. So what we want to do is actually look it up. So I'm gonna have parentheses here. And inside the parentheses, we're going to do another query, a subquery, where we can actually go find that ID. And I'm just going to do it in one line. I'm going to say select ID from style, where style.title equals, and this is where I do my hard coding, Impressionism. And as long as there is something in there that has a title of Impressionism, it's going to return an ID. And then that ID, once that's found, will be what it is comparing against when it's running the larger query here. Okay, so let's, let me go ahead and run this. I'm going to use this. All right, and we have exactly two in our list of artists, Claude Monet and Pierre-Auguste Renoir. So that is how you do that. And you'll also notice that when you do a subquery like this, you don't use a semicolon after it, because that's essentially what the parentheses are for, because you need this entire thing to run, and it's only going to run it's going to stop after one semicolon. So you only want it at the end of the entire thing. So that's just something to keep in mind about the syntax. Okay, so that's a subquery. That's an interesting way of doing that. But what if you also needed to, really get even more complex and get things across multiple tables more than that? You can actually do multiple joins. So if you have a bunch of linked tables and they have all these different columns, union keyword isn't going to work. You can really only use that to effectively to join two joins and put them together. So what instead you will do is just use a series of joins that link each by a degree of separation. And then you can use where to filter things down after you've joined them all together. Because inner join will allow you just to find what they have in common. That's going to help you narrow things down naturally just by making sure it's an inner join, but then you can get very specific by having some sort of condition. So let's go over and do this. We are going to display title, artist, and style. Those are the columns we want to actually see in the results. But we want it to be of the artwork created in 1939. And when I say we're going to display the artists, I do mean their names. So we are actually going to do the first name and last name. Okay. So let's do this. And I think I've said this before, maybe, but you don't when you have things that are unique to a table, you don't have to use dot notation on the table name. But there are definitely times when you do, and this is one of them. Title exists in both artwork and in style, and in artist. No, yeah, just artwork and style. Oh, and in exhibit. We're not using exhibit yet. But it exists in 3 of these tables. So we definitely have to use dot notation. However, typically I will use it consistently for everything, whether it's unique or not, just because when you're sitting there looking at a bunch of tables, it's helpful to not have to go look to see, oh yeah, what table was that from again? If you're explicit like this, it just saves a lot of guesswork and prevents mistakes. So I'm going to use dot notation for every single one of them, but it does happen that I absolutely have to for style and artwork because title is the same in both of them. Okay, so we'll do, those are the columns we want from, and I'm going to start with artwork. It's the one that everybody has something in common. You got to start somewhere. And then after that, it's really just a matter of making sure that you line up what they're joined on. So I'll start with artist and say we're going to join those together on the artist ID from the artwork table being equal to artist.id. And then we'll do the same thing for style on style, artwork dot style ID equals style.id. And then one more, we got to go to the details table to get, and you're like, wait, why do we need details table? Because, we have, we're only listing their first name, last name, and these titles, right? Well, we said that we wanted it to be from artwork that's created in 1939. And guess where that data exists? It exists in the details table. So we're going to have to join on that too. So when you're thinking about how to go about something like this, just think about where the data is that you need, whether you are needing it because you're going to display those columns or if you need it as a condition. So details underscore ID equals artwork details dot ID. Okay. So I have listed all the tables that needed to be joined, doing an inner join, and now is where I do my very specific condition and say where artwork details, my goodness, details, year created equals 1939. Okay. And then I'll finish with a semicolon. All right, let's run this sucker and see what we get. All right, we have exactly 2. We have the 2 Fridas by Frida Kahlo, and we have Blue Morning Glories by Georgia O'Keeffe. So those are the 2 pieces of artwork. that were created in 1939 that are in our database. But we had to get information from a lot of different tables in order to put these results together. And that's how it's done. Okay, let's go talk about scripts. Okay. So when you have multiple queries to carry out to accomplish something in a specific sequence, that is where you want to just write a script. And that's what that is. It's just several queries working together. And these are usually saved as stored procedures. You may have seen over in I gotta find the schema panel over here. You may have seen that stored procedures is one of the folders here as part of the schema. That's where a lot of those things would normally be stored, but that's beyond the scope of what we're doing. We're just teaching you guys the basics. We're just gonna write our scripts in these same files and then just make sure we just have to select all of them together before we run them. So that you can execute them as a group. Okay, so that's the important thing. And I also have made this visually in my file. I've put these dashes to visually mark out where the scripts are. Okay, and then before we actually go and do this, we need to talk about variables. Okay, so if you want to store values in a variable in SQL, this is what you do. You use the set keyword, and then you use the @ symbol with the variable name to create it, and then you give it a value. And if you have a script where you're using that same value multiple times, and then you want to be able to use that script for something else, it's really helpful to only have to change it in one place. So we're going to make our query reusable by using a variable so that we only have to change it in that one place, and then we can run it over and over. And when you are executing it, the script, make sure you include the row where you set the variable to begin with, because it doesn't know what it is. Each time you run it, you need to tell it, this is what you're setting, this is a variable I'm creating. I mean, you're doing it from scratch every single time. So if we're setting, an exhibit number, if we're setting an artist, we're going to need to include those rows when we execute. Let me just check one thing here before yep. Okay, we are ready to go over and do some of this. Awesome. Okay, so before we write our script, we're going to create an exhibit record so that we can then, write a script to do some operations with it. We're going to put some artworks into an exhibit. So the very first thing we'll do is just say insert into exhibit, and specifically, I want to add the title. I can't just say exhibit by itself, because it does have another column and has an ID column, but we set that to be auto incremented and created by the database. So we need to specify, I'm only giving you the data that's not an ID. And so you name the columns, right? So I'm just giving it title. That's the only other column. And then I'm going to say the values is just a single value, which is Renaissance and Baroque masterpieces. That's what we're going to call this exhibit. Okay. So we will run this and then go over to our exhibit table and verify that this has been created. And there it is. It has an ID of 1 because it's the very first one. And it has a title. Okay. So now that we have an exhibit, we're going to write a script to update this exhibit table and other tables as well every time we put works on exhibit. So the first thing, we're going to create a variable to hold that exhibit ID, because we're going to need to use it multiple places. And then we're going to create a variable to hold the artist's last name that's then going to help us look up their ID. We'll store that in a variable. And then we're going to actually go and set the exhibit ID for the artworks, set the artist ID. With the artist ID. That's how we're going to help look it up. And then also on the artworks, we're going to set that Boolean on display to true at the same time. So multiple things to do here, a bunch of different queries that are going to work together to help us accomplish this when we have data in different tables that all needs to be managed. Okay, so we'll start with creating a variable. I'm going to say set exhibit and just set it equal to 2. All right. That's all there is to that. Oh, no, I'm going to set it to 1. We're going to set it to 2 later. We only have exhibit 1 right now. That's going to change clearly. Okay. And then we are going to create an artist, and I'm just going to use underscore and LN for last name. And we're going to, nope. Da Vinci. We're going to start with Da Vinci because this is, after all, Renaissance and Baroque masterpieces, right? So Da Vinci is one of the ones we want to add. So let's actually look that up. Now that we have the artist last name, that's the thing that we know about to hard code. Let's go look this up. So we're going to say set artist, and now we can actually get the artist ID. And this is where we're going to use a subquery. So I'm going to say select ID from artist where last name is the artist's last name. Okay. I don't know why I keep putting an I in there. Okay. So that and could we have just put the Da Vinci in here? We could have, but that would leave me with one less variable example, and it also is harder to find. I like to declare my variables up at top, just like I do in any other language. And so I don't want to bury it in a bunch of code in the places where I'm going to change it every time I rerun the script. So that's why I chose to go ahead and set it here and then just use the variable here, because this is a little bit more involved. Okay, so now we have our artist. We can go ahead and update the information. So we're going to start with updating. We're going to update the artwork table. And we're going to set the exhibit ID to whatever the exhibit is up at the top. And then we're going to set on display to 1. So I'm actually able here to update more than one thing at a time. And I need to fix this. End up with a capital I. I'm going to set more than one value all at once here. But I need to qualify, because if you're updating or deleting, you always have to provide it with a specific primary key or range of primary keys, because otherwise it's in the, especially if it's in safe mode, it's just not going to let you do it. It's to prevent you from accidentally updating all the records in the table, which would be bad. So we're going to specify that we're matching the artist ID to whatever artist ID it was that we looked up. Okay, so now that I've done this, and this is not a very complicated script, so you might say, we did a lot of work setting up all those variables just to run this. Yeah, that's true. But it's a good example, and then you're going to need to do something similar to this. I mean, you should try to do something similar with Studio tonight. It's going to make your life easier, because you're going to write a more involved script for Studio where you actually have multiple tables to update, not just one table. And doing it like this is going to help you so that you can use those variables over and over again. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just highlight all 4 of these queries, and then come up here to the first of these lightning bolt icons and click on that. And it ran everything. You can see down here that it took all these actions. So now if we go over to the artwork table, and refresh, we're going to see that everywhere we have a Da Vinci painting, Mona Lisa, The Last Supper, Lady with an Ermine, we actually it has exhibit ID, and it also has a 1 for on display, which you may remember means true, right? Because it's a Boolean. 1 is true. So good. So we've done this. So we need to do one more. Go back to here. You'll see that the next instruction is change the artist to another artist and rerun the script. So same exhibit number, but this time in addition to Da Vinci, I'm going to add Vermeer. So I'm going to again select the entire script and run it. And then go check the artwork table, refresh again. And now we see girl with a pearl earring, the milkmaid. Do we have any more? That might be it. Have been added as well. Okay. So cool. So that's how you do it. That's you write a script and you can, run it for multiple values. So we're going to create another exhibit, and then we're going to run the script above it, change the exhibit ID and put some new artists in and just use it a couple more times. So let's say insert into to add a new record into exhibit. And again, just the title column. And we'll say the values are iconic women of modern art. Okay, and that's the end of that. So let's run this. All right, if we go over to exhibit here and refresh, we'll now see that we have ID number 2, iconic women of modern art. So we have an ID number. So let's go up to here, change in our script, change this to 2, and then change this to, okay. And then I'll select the entire thing and run it. And then I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do O'Keefe. And then select it all and run it. All right, so now let's go back over to the artwork table and here, refresh here. And we'll see these 2 artworks here by Kahlo and O'Keefe have been set to exhibit 2, and they now show that they are on display. All right. I just did a lot. Does anybody have any questions before I move on to the last thing? Nope. Okay. All right. So let's talk about grouping and counting. Oh, Gabe has a question. Gabe?
Yeah, sorry. Can you set a variable to another variable?
Yeah. Once it exists, you can use it wherever you'd like.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's all. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you want to generate totals or subtotals, you can do this with count and then just specify a column name, or you can actually do all of them. And it'll allow you to return the results as a total. If you want subtotals, you use group by and just say, this is the column that I want you to group by. And that would be like whatever categories you're looking for. Okay, and that was apparently the whole slide. Okay. Yeah, so I have 2 examples here. Both of them I'm actually going to just say, look in all the columns, but we're going to do one where we have totals and another one where we do subtotals. So let's look at the example here. All right, we want the total number of artworks that are assigned to an exhibit returned along with an exhibit title. Now we've just created 2 exhibits. So we should expect to have 2 different titles. So we actually want, okay, hold on. Yep. Yeah. So we want to be able to just display that. So we're going to say select exhibit.title. That's what we want to see. And then count. And this is where we kind of give it information on, first where to look from artwork. And we have to join the 2 together. So we're going to say, oops, because we need the exhibit title from the exhibit table. So we'll say artwork dot exhibit ID equals exhibit dot ID. All right, so it knows where to go, what data that belongs to both tables to choose from. And then we can say, yeah, this is the one where we want to actually just do it for a specific exhibit. And then we're going to write another one in a minute where we actually just do both and group them. Okay, oops, equals 2. So we could run this for exhibit 2. All right, and we get iconic women of modern art. And it says that it has 2 artworks. That's the count. If we go over and change this to exhibit number 1 and run it again. we get Renaissance and Baroque masterpieces, and it has 5. So that's a very simple way to just run a count based on a single piece of information. So we run it for both of them now. So let's actually run a very similar query. In fact, I'm just going to copy it because we're going to run the same thing, but we're not going to stop at only having one exhibit. Instead, we're going to say group by and just say exhibit.id. And that's all we really need to do. All right. So I'll run this. And we get both of them listed with their counts. We can see them all in one place. So that's kind of 2 different ways to do that. Those are fairly simple examples, but it's nice to be able to do this and to actually have subtotals all in one results using that group by keyword. Okay. All right, we are going to do one more query that's kind of a big one that joins together a lot of the things we've talked about tonight. And I just realized I made a pun. It joins together. Okay, so write a query to return the exhibit title, artwork title, artist, year created, and style. Hold on, I can't even see all my notes of each artwork on display. Okay, so we want to limit it to just the artworks that are on display. So we're definitely going to need a condition. It's telling us what we want to see. We want to see exhibit title, artwork title, artist's first name and last name, the year created, and the style. So we're going to get information from a bunch of tables. And then we want to order them by exhibit title and then order it again, a second level of ordering by last name. All right, so let's do this. Let's say select. And I got to go through and do all of these, right? So exhibit.title, artwork.title, artist.first name, artist.last name, artwork.details, no, artwork underscore details. I'm going to go to the artwork details table and get the year created, and then the style.title. Okay, all of that from artwork. And then we do our joins, inner join. And you know what? I can borrow from, I can't borrow the first one. Let's do the first one and then I'll borrow it from the other ones. Inner join exhibit on artwork.exhibit ID equals exhibit.id. All right. And then, oops, I don't need a semicolon yet. We still have more to write. Let me come up here. We did this one where we were joining things together, and I have these 3 tables already written out. So I'm just going to borrow those lines and add those here because we need to join all 4 of them to the original one. So we're joining all 5 tables by doing this. Where we said that it was only for ones that were on display. That's in the artwork table. So we're going to go to artwork.onDisplay. And that needs to be true, which is 1. And then we want to order by and say exhibit.title, and then we'll order it again on artist last name. And then we have a semicolon. Okay, this is all one query, but it's joining together a lot of data and it's going to produce a lot of results. So let's, oops, no, got away from me. All right, let's run this. And here we go. And I'll pull this up. So we see both of the ones that are on display in the Iconic Women of Modern Art exhibit. And we see all 5 that are on display in Renaissance and Baroque masterpieces. We've got their titles, the first name and last name, the artist, the year created coming from the details table, and the style, which is coming from the style table. Yeah. Okay, that is it. Does anybody have any questions? Cesar? Caesar? How do you pronounce it?
It's Caesar.
Yeah, okay.
I just had a quick question about left and right outer joins.
Yep.
Specifically when you would use one over the other, because it just seems like they're kind of the same thing with just the variable switched.
That's true. It really is just about, you can use either one, you're right, depending on which table you make the first table and which table you make the second table, the left and the right. But the main thing to remember with left and right joins is that it's going to include all of the records from either the left or the right, the left if you do a left join, the right if you do a right join, even if they don't have anything in common. And then it returns the details from the other table for the ones that it has, that they do have in common. But it omits any records that are in the other table that don't have anything in common. Did that make sense? I don't have my other slides in front of me, but if you look up the slides from the last class we did, I've got those Venn diagrams. That should help.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. You guys are getting out really early tonight. It's a short lecture. Okay. So coming down the pike, you've got class 16. So classes 16, 17, and 18 are all about object relational mapping, which is what we are going to do in our spring Java project to actually set up a database. That's going to be part 1, is just getting the whole thing set up so that your app is successfully connected to the database and is able to do basic CRUD ops. But what we're going to do in parts 2 and 3 is really unpack how to set those relationships when you have more complex relationships. We're going to have additional classes, because so far we've only had artwork. So we're going to create some of these other things as models, like artist and style. And we're going to then set those relationships using the right annotations in our Java files and those kinds of things. You're going to learn all about it. The old curriculum had the chapters like with lots of a whole numbering system, and now they don't. So I'm calling it 18A and 18B. But what it is that chapter 18 is split into 5 sections. We're going to do the first 3 sections on this class, and then the last 2. So that stands for many to one, one to many. And this is one to one and many to many. So we'll do those in part 3. Okay. You also might notice that your studios, there are no studios for classes 17 and 18. You're actually just going to be able to work on your final graded assignment during that class, which will be useful when it's fresh in your head from lecture. Okay, tonight's studio, you are going to get to practice some of these more complex things with your SQL database. You're going to create a schema called library. You're going to create 6 different tables, and you're going to manage the relationships between them with foreign keys, like you saw tonight. And then you're going to write queries to perform tasks, and you're going to write scripts with series of queries. You can definitely, tonight's slides are actually already available. And the link to this code that I was just using is in there. As you saw, it's in the class 15 examples folder of that repo. So if you are wanting something to refer to, that would be helpful. But you're going to do this. You're going to, be importing things from CSV files and all this to get all this done. So with that, I will let you guys head on out. And I will see you on Thursday for ORM Part 1.